Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by Calhoun's, A Taste of Tennessee. Next Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday, and we can help you plan your party, or at least Calhoun's can. Call Calhoun's for a Feed 5 or Feed 10 family pack just like this, or call them for a party platter to go. Great Calhoun's food, utensils, plates, napkins. You can even get beer to go from their Smoky Mountain Brewery. They provide that. If you call Calhoun's, any of their locations, order for Super Bowl Sunday, a Feed 5 or Feed 10 family pack or party platter to go. And you can also ask them about taking that great Smoky Mountain Brewery beer with you to go. Calhoun's on Super Bowl Sunday. All right, I want to welcome in the next member of our panel right over here from GoVols247.com. He covers recruiting, Ryan Callahan. Ryan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, want to get to our first question that I asked these guys, and that your lists were remarkably similar. You guys didn't talk about this, but I asked them each to provide me a list of the top 5 remaining prospects on Tennessee's recruiting board. And let's go ahead and take a look at this if we can. We may be having issues with graphics. There we go. Josh and Ryan, I'll start with you, Josh, because you both have the same guy up there pretty high. You've got Quay Walker, linebacker, 4-star, number 1. Ryan, you've got him number 2. Josh, tell me about Quay Walker.
Yeah, Quay Walker is a guy that's been committed to Alabama and very much likes Tennessee because of Tennessee staff with Jeremy Pruitt, Kevin Scherer, the new defense coordinator, his ties to Georgia, and you have Alabama, Georgia, Auburn's been in the mix there with Quay Walker as well. But very talented player with Tennessee already getting a commitment from J.J. Peterson. The Vols would love to add Walker to the list. I put him at number 1 ahead of Elijah Griffin just because I see maybe a slightly better chance of Walker to choose Tennessee.
Your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, we're splitting hairs really between 1 and 2. Obviously, both guys, all 5 of those guys would be pretty much no question takes for Tennessee. But Quay Walker, really good player, and obviously a guy that doesn't look a lot like any of the linebackers Tennessee has on its current roster. Just a great athlete, really big, and a guy that can play almost any position in their defense. So someone that would be really coveted and would be an impressive pickup for Tennessee. Not the least of which is because he's committed to Alabama, but a lot of people aren't sure he ends up at Alabama. Georgia and Auburn and Tennessee all have realistic shots. Still visiting Auburn this weekend, Georgia next weekend, so it'll be an interesting race down the stretch, and I think Tennessee has a real shot. Okay,
well, let's go back to our board, take a look at who we had. And we can leave that lower third out there, Chris, for the rest of the way here. We'll go over to Ryan. Your number 1 was Elijah Griffin. That's Josh's number 2, so you guys can talk about. We've mentioned him before, the 5-star quarterback from out west. Of course, that's Warren G's son. From people of my age would remember the song with the Regulators.
Yeah, so he can be the regulator of the class.
Exactly. I think you've used that line every time he's come up.
Every single time.
All right, thoughts on Ryan, I'll start with you. Thoughts on Elijah Griffin and why you put him number 1 on your list?
Well, to me, it comes down to need. You know, Tennessee got a good linebacker in this class in J.J. Peterson. That's not the most pressing need necessarily, although there's a big chance for Quay Walker to come in and play right away. But Elijah Griffin, to me, just a combination of need and talent. The guy they've kind of targeted since day 1 at cornerback and really want, in addition to Eddie Smith. And I think he would be a day 1 starter if he ended up at Tennessee. It looks like a real battle between Tennessee and USC right now, just a matter of whether he'll leave the West Coast.
At one point, was he committed to UCLA at one point?
He was.
Okay, and now UCLA is really out of the picture altogether?
For the most part, yeah. He hasn't ruled out a last weekend visit to UCLA just to take another look at the new staff, but they're out of it because he was committed to the previous staff there and had a relationship with them.
Josh, your thoughts on Griffin?
Yeah, and I think Tennessee played a major role in at least helping that commitment break loose to UCLA. He visited Knoxville, Griffin did, as a UCLA commit, decommitted, and had Tennessee at the top of his list during the Under Armour All-American Week. So you have that USC battle. It's funny that Alabama's also in the mix with these guys like Eddie Smith, who Ryan just mentioned there as well. So the top 3 guys on our list, Alabama's at least pursuing all of those guys.
Okay.
Griffin visiting Bama this weekend, and on top of that, he's got family in Chattanooga, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Even though he is a West Coast guy, he at least has some ties to the state of Tennessee that could give him reason to feel comfortable here.
Although Chattanooga is not far from, it's about the same trip over to Tuscaloosa as well. That's not too far. All right, let's go to the list again, and we'll kind of hurry through a couple of these. You both had cornerback Eddie Smith, 3-star, as your number 3. Josh, I'll let you start here. Tell me about Eddie Smith.
Yeah, again, position of need, former TCU commit. A lot of these guys that we'll talk about today in recruiting have been committed somewhere at some point, it seems like. But you got to get some help there in the defensive backfield with all the guys that you've lost. And Eddie Smith was really impressed during his visit to Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. When Alabama calls, that makes you probably want him a little bit more as well, but very well thought of player.
Ryan, where's this guy from? Tell me more about
From just outside New Orleans, actually trained in the New Orleans area with former Tennessee star J.J. McCleskey, who's now an assistant coach at Tulane, so that's a connection to keep in mind. He also trained with Cheyenne LaBruza, the Tennessee freshman defensive back under McCleskey, so definitely a couple ties there that have played into why he likes Tennessee. He also sees a big opportunity there and a big, long, rangy cornerback. You mentioned he's a 3-star, but 24/7 Sports, we actually rated him a 4-star prospect this week. So his stock has risen in the last several days, or last several weeks, I should say. And I think Tennessee probably is the slightest of favorites there, although, again, Alabama still wants 2 more cornerbacks and is hosting him this weekend.
All right, let's go back to the list, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you about number 5, because you guys have a difference at number 4. Let's just jump down. Let's quickly talk about wide receiver Jacob Copeland, 4-star. Ryan, where's this guy from? What's the story?
From Pensacola, Florida, and a guy that Jeremy Pruitt in particular has a really strong relationship with. He's been recruiting him basically since his freshman year of high school, and Pruitt, that relationship's a big part of the reason Tennessee immediately jumped into the picture there. I think he sees Tennessee as a place he can come in and play right away. Alabama and Florida were always viewed as the favorites. Alabama in particular, once he decommitted from Florida in late November. So former Florida commitment, he's going to visit there next weekend, the final weekend before signing day. So it's still a 3-team race, very much wide open. You always wonder with Alabama, will he have a spot there the way they recruit? And that's something to keep an eye on. But I think Tennessee's got a real shot down the stretch because of that relationship with Jeremy Pruitt.
Anything to add quickly on Copeland?
Yeah, that's to me about getting talent. Wide receiver's not the biggest need, but he's a playmaker, and if you can get that kind of player immediately into the program, you take him.
Okay, very good. And let's go back to the board and look at their number 4s, and I'll let you guys debate it here. About 30 seconds to each of you. Josh, I'll start with you. You have defensive end John Mincy, 3-star prospect. And that's, these are all depending on if you're looking at 24/7, if you're looking at rivals, it changes. But 3-star John Mincy, 30 seconds, tell me about him.
The biggest difference for me of why I have Mincy on the list versus Miller would be that Mincy, I think, is more gettable as a prospect. I would rate Miller higher in terms of want, but him being committed to Auburn. So I would lean toward Ryan's list if it were even odds to get the 2 players, but you need help on the defensive line. It was a defensive recruiting weekend for Tennessee. The Vols need help up front.
Okay, and then the last number 4, we've got 4-star defensive tackle Conus Miller. If we can show that again, there you go. There you go, Conus Miller. That's pronounced. Ryan informed me I was going to say Coinus. So Conus Miller. Why is he on your list?
Yeah, so he's been committed to Auburn for a few months, but this is the guy Jeremy Pruitt's staff actually offered the night he took the Tennessee job. That tells you how big of a priority I think he is for Tennessee, and I think that tells you they've always thought they at least had a slight chance there. Pruitt obviously knows him from his time at Alabama. There's a bit of a relationship there. He's visiting Tennessee this weekend. We'll see what he says after this visit, but I think he's been intrigued enough by Tennessee that was the reason he didn't sign with Auburn last month. Tennessee and Florida, the main 2 he's looking at. So I think there's at least an outside chance for Tennessee to steal him away, but he's a defensive tackle from Birmingham, committed to Auburn. Not going to be an easy flip.
And to be clear, Tennessee has 14 signees already, early signees that are already in the barn. They've got 4 more commits that seem like, well, we'll talk about whether they're locks or not next. But so that's 18. You can sign up to 25, but due to Shaq Wiggins coming in and signing as a grad transfer, a couple of other gray shirts, blue shirts, chartreuse shirts, you're down to, it looks like 22 is probably what they're targeting. So you're looking at 4 more guys. Now they're targeting 5 there. I'm sure they have fallbacks to those 5, but basically 4 more we think, unless they start counting forward and counting backward this year. But probably 22 will be the number, correct?
I think that's the working number. I don't think that's necessarily where they end up. I wouldn't be surprised if it inched a little bit above that, but we'll see.
Okay, we'll see. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about top 3 guys that are most likely to flip to Tennessee, top 3 guys that are most likely to flip from Tennessee. We'll discuss that next on the Sports Source. Come on back.